So we're doing a course on burnout prevention and recovery, and the basis of it is the Joyous effort section of the Lamrim Chenmo. So we're just kind of orienting ourselves. We've been to many Dharma classes and we'll go to many Dharma classes. This Dharma class is about that, okay? So particularly we're talking about the things today that prevent energy or interrupt energy. So that's going to be the main emphasis of today. The last time we were talking about what are the states of mind we want to have and why do we want them? What are the sort of ways to protect the mind from fatigue, from tiredness? And so if you want to just refresh your memory of what we did last time, and then for those of you that weren't here, go ahead and look at your handouts on page 2. So on page 2 of your handouts, it just has those first 3 types of joyous effort. It's all right, I'll say them out loud if you don't have your course materials. So the first type was this armor-like joyous perseverance. Remember? Armor-like joyous perseverance that was really about establishing a very solid and clear motivation as a kind of armor to protect yourself from what might pull you astray. Yeah, vaguely remembering, ringing bells. Yeah, and this was developed by remembering things like the life stories of spiritual teachers that you really respect, people who you consider mentors, even family members who have undergone hardship, and just kind of remembering the fact that most strengths are developed through hardship. And so hardship is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It was that really classic reframing that we do in Buddhism, right? Taking everything on the path to transformation. Okay? And then we had the joyous effort of acting constructively, which was just really applying yourself to the 6 perfections. Yeah? That once you start cultivating positive habits, they're self-reinforcing. You know, the hardest part is starting sometimes, isn't it? But once you're on a roll with doing positive things, one leads to the other very naturally. And so remembering that can help you reprioritize what is the way you use your energy in your life. Yeah. And then the third one was the joyous effort of working for the welfare of sentient beings. And this one was really any activity that's motivated by altruism, but thinking of others specifically. Yeah, thinking of really what is going to benefit others. And not in a goal-oriented way, but in how you're motivated. Because if you're in a, I must fix them in order to feel satisfied, that will make you burn out, right? If you have to be successful in acting constructively, that will become one more weapon against yourself. But having the idea, I want to be of benefit to others, and I'm going to actively engage in things that are constructive to them, that makes your mind happy, because then life has meaning. Yeah? Otherwise, you're doing something like, you know, an ordinary job that might have some purpose, but it doesn't have enough purpose to make you really joyful. But if you take the work that's maybe just a so-so work, but you bring this motivation to it, it can lift any kind of job into something that can feel like a spiritual path. Because you're not just thinking of the work itself, you're thinking about your coworkers, you're thinking about your customers, you're thinking about your clients or whoever it is you're coming into action with, not just about the service that you're providing, not just about the thing you're trying to sell or whatever your work is, you're thinking deeply about what is going to be of greatest benefit to them in their awakening. Yeah, and then here, look at this fun soap I want to sell you, right? So you can have a totally ordinary job with a really deep motivation. Does it make sense? So these are the states of mind that we want to kind of have at the beginning or come back to when we forget. And that was kind of the first teaching in the joyous effort section. And we were also talking about what are the other perfections. Yeah, so you remember the 6 perfections? Yes. Generosity, yeah, next. Ethics. Patience, yep, and then joyous effort. And then after joyous effort comes what? Concentration and wisdom. Exactly. And so if you're coming at this teaching from a completely secular perspective, that's totally fine. And if you're coming at it from a Mahayana perspective, you want this idea that joyous effort is informing all of the other perfections, and all of the other perfections are informing it. So what would that look like? What would be the joyous effort of generosity, or the generosity of joyous effort? What would that look like? At least in your head, what would that look like? Yeah.
While using generosity for the benefit of others, being happy for others.
Exactly. Yeah, being happy doing the work that you're doing. Yeah. Being happy during the generosity action itself. Yeah. Yep, like this. Yeah, other things. The joyous effort of generosity. Or the generosity of joyous effort. Yeah. Being generous with your joyous effort, right? Having lots of it, right? Having lots of it. And again, remembering why, right? All of the reasons why boil down to it helps you and it helps others. How exhausting is it to be with someone who's burnt out? Yeah? Even if you're not burnt out, if you're with someone who's burnt out and it's just dragging energy, or they're kind of like sucking all the air out of the room, right? It's exhausting. But if you're thinking, for their sake, I need to find the will. I need to find the strength. Because if I have generosity with my joyous effort, that's infectious, right? It's contagious in a good way, right? If you're feeling really motivated, it helps the people around you. Yeah? So then what would be like the ethics of joyous effort? Or the joyous effort of ethics? Just using your own logic, right? It's not like a trick question. Yeah. So what are ethics?
We're talking morality here?
Yep. The perfection of ethics, or the perfection of morality, restraint from harm, right? We're talking about restraint from harm. So how would you take delight in virtue and apply it to restraint from harm? Happy ethics, right?
It's a good feeling, something to go by for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Look, like this is the thing, it's so simple. I mean, if you go to bed at the end of the day, having practiced really ethically, you sleep well, yeah? And you wake up okay. If you've had a day where you were a little bit dodgy, right? If you were a little shady in some of your interactions, right? If you were a bit deceptive, or if you were a little bit harmful, things that wouldn't land you in jail, things that everyone else does, but aren't really excellent ethics, there's an uneasiness, yeah? Which means you don't have a satisfying sleep. And then you wake up and you don't feel satisfied. And you also feel that edge of fatigue, having not recovered from the day, because all through the sleep was probably trying to justify your mistakes, or talk badly about your mistakes, or, somehow justify the way that you are in life but not really believe it, or all sorts of stuff is happening while you're trying to sleep, right? With ethics, you sleep well. But also with ethics, you are happy. Yeah, there's a really clean, as Tal was saying, there's like a clean happiness when you're really ethical. Yeah? What is this face? Disagree?
If you can be ethical and still do things that will get you to that point at night. So I think maybe that goes to the regret and guilt. Because basically, as we're not Buddhas, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's very tricky, because you can get yourself into this like self-violence.
Yeah.
That you,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it goes back to the motivation. If your motivation is positive, so okay, make mistake. Let's try better.
Yep, having regret is liberating, having guilt is stagnating, right? So when you aren't living in an ethical way, that makes you tired, but it also makes you feel terrible about yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to go back in time and fix it, because you can't. It's about acknowledging a fault to be a fault with the understanding of the perfection of wisdom, right? Which is that all actions, positive and negative, are empty of inherent existence because they dependently arise. Right? Even your worst mistake was not done independently. Yeah? One or two conditions different, you would have made a different choice. Isn't that correct? Right? So yes, you have to take responsibility, but it's not the same thing as putting yourself at fault. Yeah, it's much different. So that's using the perfection of wisdom. So we jumped over all the rest. Excellent. Yeah. So then, right, the patience of joyous effort. This one, I think, is our most important one. The patience of joyous effort, yeah? Or forbearance with suffering, together with delight in virtue. What on earth would that look like? Yeah? Forbearance with suffering while delighting in virtue. Right? Use the old exercise analogy, right? Use the good old exercise analogy. People that like to exercise, they are happy suffering. Yeah? Weirdos? Yeah? Yeah, really, because they know it's making them stronger. Yeah? They know it's making them stronger. Even if you're on a new diet that you don't particularly enjoy, but you see the benefit, right? You're starting to eat all sorts of green things, and it's just a green things extravaganza, and you're not even a huge fan of green things, but you notice that you're a bit more energized, that your digestion is happy, right? So even as you're eating, like, oh my God, enough with the spinach, or kale, right? Enough with the kale. Part of you is happy knowing that it's making you healthy, right? Once you're on a roll with it, right? If you're still in resistance to your diet, that just doesn't work, does it? But what we're wanting to look at is that it's not that you can't have some hardship while at the same time having joy. Joy and hardship can exist simultaneously. And joyous effort with patience is understanding that you can have a real mental happiness even while there's a little bit of a struggle going on. Do you agree, right? Just from your life so far, there's been times when there's been a struggle, but mentally you've still had some happiness, right? And so also being patient with what your joyous effort is setting out to accomplish, yeah? So joyous effort has different goals, but if you don't have patience with joyous effort, then if it's not coming to fruition quickly, you give up. And one of the quickest ways to burn yourself out is to drop something in the middle. Yeah, to have a project, whether a spiritual project or a physical project or a work project, to be on a roll with it and drop it in the middle is actually one of the things that will make you the most sad and interrupt your momentum. Yeah, because it is so much harder to pick up and start from scratch, or pick up where you left off and try and figure out where you left off and then continue. That is a huge energetic output, right? It really is exhausting. And we do it a lot, right? We start something and don't finish it, and it's normal and it's human. But to remember that if we bite off more than we can chew and then let it go, that is a recipe for burnout. Right? It is much more skillful to do much less than you think you can and finish it than to do way more than you think you can and drop it in the middle. Yeah. Of course, there's life lessons to be learned from both. Of course, no effort is completely useless if it's directed in a positive way, but we're just being strategic about what keeps you happy and energized. Finishing things does make us happy. Do you reckon? Yeah? And our pride wants to overestimate what we can do. Yeah? Because it makes plans based on your best day. Yeah? When you say yes to things, they are things you could do if you were at your best consistently. Right? If you were your very best version for months on end, you could do that thing you promised. And your pride thinks of yourself in its best version. right? It has a kind of a holding to a permanent idea of yourself. When you're your most intelligent, sharp, well-rested, etc., yeah, that person that's happy and kind and productive, but in fact, that person is not the most consistently there, right? You have kind of a middle range person that's much more you, right? Much more commonly you. So if you make plans for that person, you might actually accomplish them. And if you make plans for your worst version, you'll definitely accomplish them. Yeah, you on your most tired day, most grumpy, yeah, most inefficient and sort of vague, if you make plans based on what could that person do, you're definitely going to be able to do them. Yeah, and then you have kind of a satisfied feeling afterwards and can do something else. But do you see the way pride infiltrates your joy and steals it? The way pride infiltrates your momentum and your energy, yeah, and interrupts it. Who you think you are or who you think you should be based on pride isn't really good, is it? Yeah? And the problem is that pride gets so tied up with shame. Because if we aren't that person our pride says we are, then we must be bad. Yeah? We don't think, oh, then we must be normal, right? Normal's fine. We go straight to, then you must be terrible if you're not that person you think you are or think you should be or think people see you as. You go straight down. You think you're terrible. And, then all sorts of problematic behaviors arise to try and prevent other people from seeing that, right? You get defensive or you get needy. Yeah, you want validation all the time, or you're trying to prove yourself all the time. If you just made plans based on your middle range everyday version, or on your most slacker version, there wouldn't be that whole dance. Yeah? So, pride and confidence are very different things. Pride takes energy, confidence gives energy. Yeah, confidence is based on your potential. Confidence is based on knowledge of your past and having done things well in the past and recognize the effort it took to do them. Rather than thinking of the things that you've done in terms of identity, you think of the things you've done in terms of the effort required. It's a much different state of mind. Yeah? So if you think that what you're supposed to accomplish can be accomplished through time and effort, that's more likely to engage your confidence, because with time and effort you can do things. If your whole idea of your project is based on, this is who I am as a person, I'm the sort of person that can accomplish these things, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah? Because you're also suffocating the potential to ask for help, because pride hates asking for help. Confidence knows, oh, I need supports in order to continue the thing I'm sure I can do with the right kind of conditions and supports. It's a lot more flexible. But if you set out with this whole identity thing around your project, then your pride won't let you ask for help, or you feel humiliated to ask for help. Yeah? So all of these things are just interesting points of self-awareness to check in with. Yeah, how do I get out of the flow? Yeah, what are the things that interrupt my flow? And particularly with the spiritual path. Yeah, because the spiritual path is something that intellectually we can understand very easily. A lot of these points need 1 or 2 sentences and you get it, and it refreshes your common sense. And then you don't live that way and you think you're bad. Instead of just acknowledging, no, you're just not focused. Right? We're distracted. We're not bad. We're just distracted. What's the way to get less distracted? Focus. Right? Focus. Mindfulness. Yeah. Mindfulness with an agenda that's noticing, what am I doing right now? And is it in accordance with my motivation? Yeah, not what am I doing right now passively. Yeah. Okay. So, I thought it would be interesting if we just talked about how joy itself is talked about in Buddhism, and then we'll go into these things that are preventing joy, okay? And, keep coming back to the idea that joyous effort is the opposite or the antidote to burnout. It's also the way to recover from burnout. So that's the framework of this particular course. But joy is talked about in a whole bunch of different ways in Buddhism. Okay, so first of all, we just need to establish this thing that most of you know, which is that all pleasant feelings are the ripening of positive karma, right? Whether it's physical happiness or mental happiness, it's past karma ripening. Okay, so just coming back to that. So if we're not happy right now, it might not have anything to do with right now. Okay? You think it's my work, it's my spouse, it's my children, it's my whatever, it's my health. Of course, your mother, obviously. Yep, right, especially here. And, right?
What if you have a mother?
You had something?
Yeah, right, you have memory of mother. Or longing of mother, right? Yeah, so anyway, so what you're realizing is that if all pleasant feelings are the ripening of positive karma, that means what's going on right now is a result of the past. Yeah, so then don't give all of the emphasis to what's happening in the present for how you currently feel, because how you currently feel is from the past. Yeah? Because we remember that karma is ripening or developing or blossoming in the present as feeling. So our current feelings are past karma ripening. Our future karma is through intention. Yeah? So what we do with what's happening right now creates our future karma. Yeah? So old karma, mental factor of feeling. New karma, mental factor of intention. So these are just two key things to know about karma, right? Yeah? So then we get into conditions. Okay? So the substantial cause for all forms of happiness are previous moments of positive actions of body, speech, or mind. Right? So then those are the substantial causes. What are the conditions for happiness to arise? So you have a little seed, right, from the past on your mental continuum, right? Like you fed the cat on time, right? You fed the cat on time, thinking loving thoughts about him, plants a seed on your mental continuum. How do you get a seed like that to ripen as happiness in the present? You have to start looking at conditions. What are the main conditions, do you think, that ripen old good karma? What are the main conditions?
That specific karma?
No, just generally a good karma. We'd have to be Buddhas to precisely sift out, right? And then we wouldn't need to. Yeah, but to get a good karma to ripen as happiness, what conditions do you need? Just off the top of your head, guessing.
Motivation first, and you need the right.
Correct motivation, exactly. For example, commitments, yep, exactly. What's an example of a good motivation?
Regarding the cat.
Anything.
Benefiting others.
Benefiting others, right? So your current states of mind. So it's not to say that the physical conditions aren't conditions. The temperature in the room, the people in the room, the country that you're in, the workplace situation, those are conditions, right? They do have an impact on which karma is ripening. But the biggest conditions are your current states of mind. Yeah? Your current states of mind are what's going to help ripen your past karma into experience. All right? So your current states of mind, you have many, many mental factors, right, simultaneously arising. But the one that we have the most control over is discrimination or recognition. Yeah, this one, the discernment factor, the labeler. Yeah? So subtly, the discrimination is able to discern between this is space and this is solid, right? It discerns between things. But in the more coarse level, it's describing things. But we assume it's describing things accurately. And that is not always the case. Okay? So the way you describe things to yourself has a huge impact on what the next karma is that's going to ripen. If you're saying everything about this is bad, negative, and must be avoided, that's a very strong condition for old negative karma to ripen as suffering. Yeah, and then you think, see, it proves it. It proves it's bad because here I am suffering. Yeah, I was right. It was bad. And then you see how the whole cycle perpetuates itself. So if you've labeled something as bad, then it continues to ripen old negative seeds as suffering. And then your intention keeps creating the cause for more of that. Yeah? What if you had an uncomfortable feeling and you stopped and said, what is the most useful way I can use this uncomfortable feeling? Yeah? What is the most useful way? If it's Tonglen is one of the most useful ways, exactly. How can I keep it from reinforcing self-cherishing? Yeah, how can I stop it from doing that same old thing? How can I keep myself from blaming the current environment? Right? And so instead of going, it's unpleasant, therefore everything here must be bad, we say, oh, it's unpleasant. That means negative karma's ripening. Yeah? It's a whole different way of thinking about it. And it's also not denying your feelings, right? You're fully experiencing, I feel really uncomfortable right now, or I feel really sad right now. Physically or mentally, there is suffering happening, and that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but it also doesn't mean that what's happening around me is the cause for it. What's happening around me is just one of many conditions, the main condition being how I've described it to myself. Yeah? Does it make sense?
Sure.
Right? So if you describe it to yourself in a beneficial way, you're still going to suffer for a little while longer. And that's where you have to be patient. Yeah? You go, oh, well, I reframed it and it didn't work. Yeah? I said, okay, I'm taking it on the path. I'm using it to open my heart for compassion. I'm using it for empathy. Still suffering, stupid Buddhists, right? Because there's lag time, right? Seeds, once they sprout, have to finish, right? So once a seed is sprouted, it's ripened, it's done, right? It's happening. It's got to live its lifespan, yeah? And so what you're trying to do is hold yourself steady behaviorally while it sprouts. And then eventually the potency for that seed dies and finishes. And because you've maintained a positive state of mind through your suffering, the next seed to ripen will ripen as happiness. Yeah? So really think about it the way we think of seeds in the natural world. Yeah, say there's a seed for a flower of 4 different types of flower, okay? 4 different types of flower. They are all seeds for flowers. But because they're different types of flowers, they're all going to live different lengths of time. Yeah, and you water them all the same and you give them all the same sunlight and all the same food. When they sprout, they're still all going to last different lengths of time because they're different types of seeds. Yes? This is the same way karmic seeds are. The potency is specific to which one is ripening. Yeah? So there are some things that last our whole life. Right? Some things that were part of our baggage from our previous life and the sort of baggage that was projected into this life. We were incredibly lucky to get a human life, but we have lots of things which are called completing karmas, which might be a little difficult. Right? Like if we have a genetic illness, like if people just never believe us even when we're telling the truth. Yeah, stuff like that. Sometimes, if it's a strong enough thing you came in with, you'll just keep experiencing it throughout this life. And so your work is to understand, how do I use my mind to not let it take over into some real suffering life? How do I use this fact in my life in a good way? But most of our karmas are actually quite short-lived. Yeah, there's only a few of them that are these whole lifetime karmas. Yeah, like, you have the whole lifetime karma of being Jewish, right? Right, all right? So, you can become Buddhist, but you know that you're still Jewish, right? At the depths, right? No, but you know what I mean, right? That you have this whole, whatever eye color you have, right? You're not going to change your eye color unless you get some fancy contacts, right? So things like this, these are your lifetime karmas, but really most of the everyday karmas are very short-lived, but because we're so impatient, we want immediate gratification. Yeah, this is uncomfortable, I must do something. This is uncomfortable, I must do something, which from a survival perspective is not bad, right? But from our afflictive perspective, it becomes very neurotic, yeah? So if it's, okay, I'm getting too cold, I might freeze to death, I should move to a warm place or add more clothing, that's fine, right? Adjust the conditions. But if it's this person sitting next to me on the train who isn't saying or doing anything, but I just really don't like them, they're giving me suffering, what should I do? I must look at my phone, scrolling for happiness. I can't bear being next to them, look out the window, have a snack, you know, and we become all agitated with the condition of this person next to us. Yeah, and this is what we're talking about. You have suffering arising, and there's this person there. Don't make them the same thing. Yeah? They might have been a strong condition for suffering to arise. Why? Because you were horrible to them in the past. Right? Not because they're doing anything particularly in the present. You know this feeling when you just meet people and you just don't like them for no particular reason? Also, we meet people and like them immediately for no particular reason, yeah? Think about that, that's nice. But when we have these kind of immediate experiences with people, we take it as truth rather than past. Yeah, and we reinforce it with whatever our current prejudices are about people, some of which have kept us safe and most of which are nonsense. Yeah? So it's not pretending that some of your discriminations haven't served the function of keeping you safe, but most of them have reinforced your habits that trigger suffering. Okay. So this whole discussion of karma is kind of interesting background for the whole discussion. You can take it or leave it, but I think, you know, even if you don't believe in karma in the past and future lives sense, you do understand in a basic way that how you see things in the present is informed by your associations in the past, right? How you see things right now is, you know, based on the patterns that you've seen already in your life so far. And some of them are nonsense. Yeah, and that's what we need the space to be able to check. Because we have this assumption that if it arises, it is true. If it arises, it's habit. That's what's true. If it arises, it's habit. It may or may not be true. So to have the space to check, okay, this is an old, familiar cycle of thoughts. For once, let me have some objectivity with it and say, is that actually the case? Yeah? Is it functional? Is it healthy? Yeah? And just play with, if I frame things differently, and then just stay patiently holding that, what happens in the future? And it might be that an hour later, you are surprisingly happy for no particular reason, not having realized that what you did is created conditions for a new seed to ripen. Yeah? And then there was that lag time. So sometimes our emotions seem to come out of nowhere, but they never come out of nowhere. Yeah. So what's happening right now is that the mental factor of contact, that meeting of the outside and inside world, is then being described by discrimination in a certain way. And the way you describe discrimination is one of the big conditions that ripens your old karma into feeling. And based on how you're feeling is going to dictate what you hold your attention on and what you do with it. Yeah? So you're not actually trying to change your feelings from the beginning. You're trying to change your discriminations, which will then in turn change your feelings. What we're trying to do most of the day is change our feelings. If it's unpleasant, get it pleasant. If it's pleasant, keep it longer. Yeah? That's what we're doing most of the day. And we're going from sense to sense, right? I will look at something until I'm bored, then I will listen to something until I'm bored, then I'll talk to someone until I'm bored, and then I'll eat something until I'm bored, right? And we just kind of ping around from sense to sense, trying to prolong happiness and avoid suffering. But if you've ever been to India and seen these yogis in the caves around Dharamsala, they are happy as can be in their little cave with their bag of tsampa, which is like roasted barley flour, all right? They have no apps, right? Right? They don't have phones. Some of them have phones. Not all of them have phones, right? And they're just sitting there quietly with their mind, happy as can be. And wouldn't that be empowering if we could do that? Then we could live any kind of life we want. Anything could happen in our life, and it wouldn't dictate how much joy we had. Yeah, so just really gently exploring the fact that this present moment's experiences of feeling are not about this present moment. They're about the past. And they're based on how you've described things to yourself in the past that were similar. It doesn't mean that they're true. Okay. Questions about karma and feelings before we move on? Mm.
How do you, okay, so there's bad karma ripening, and what do you do? Basically, what is the right action to do when bad karma is ripening?
Well, give an example.
Okay, we're talking about...
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you work so hard and you're not getting a promotion. Yep. Has that ever happened to human beings? Yeah. Yeah, so you're, yeah.
So what are you doing in this moment? Do not burn yourself out, getting yourself bored,
Yeah.
or being angry, or not liking any, like eating a child.
Yes, exactly, yeah. That is the normal conclusion, right? Look, because there's the practical, logistical things that your mother and father would tell you to do in such a situation, right? Yeah, quit your job, search for something else, or present yourself differently, or state your case differently, or whatever, it's Israel, right? So make relationships with people in charge, right? I don't know how you guys do it, but it all seems to be based on like friendships and like marital relationships, right? So the logistical things, if they're ethical, they still hold. But karmically, what you're wanting to do is, actually, the reason why I'm not being recognized is because I myself have had this critical judgmental mind towards people that doesn't see their qualities. Yeah? And so how can I consciously see the qualities of other people? Yeah? Just in my life generally. So whatever you're experiencing right now, you're asking yourself, am I still creating the cause for that? Or is it a habit I've really changed and I'm just kind of riding the wave of old stuff that's probably going to finish? Yeah? But you might still be creating the cause for more and more and more of that by how critical you are of other people, or kind of lack of seeing the qualities in people you don't respect. Yeah? And so, this is a question we all have to ask ourselves is what you're experiencing now something you're pretty much going to keep experiencing because you keep creating the cause? So go really to the depths of it. What is happening right now in my mind? Okay. Then there's also the impatience that's happening, right? So you look at the impatience and say, is it fair to expect a promotion so quickly? Is this the timeline of the other people of this job in this workplace? Right? So you use your common sense, right? And you go, okay, I think I'm a special case because I'm very, very qualified, so I should really have gotten a promotion by now. But if I look around, no one else has gotten a promotion like this quite as quickly. They usually have to wait 3 to 5 years. Right? And it can make you patient. Yeah? You check in, right? So don't let everyday common sense kind of defeat the purpose of looking at karma. You do the same at the same time, right? You use your common sense, which is either stay or leave, right? If I stay, I need to change these things. If I leave, I need to organize these things. That's good, that's fine. Use your common sense. But karmically speaking, you're really checking, I don't like this. Therefore, I need to stop creating the cause for this. Well, look at what's happening, right? Exactly. Yeah, so you're experiencing a result similar to the cause. So what you're experiencing, you've created. The question is, are you still creating it? Yeah.
I think the tricky part is saying, why didn't I?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Self-cherishing, self-grasping. I'm not at fault.
Yeah, surely not.
It's not, of course, it's not personal. It's not, might be there's like millions of other reasons why you didn't get a promotion.
Sure.
It doesn't have to do with you doing good work or bad work. There's like the CEOs,
Having a bad day.
like everything.
Yeah.
But still, something is ripening and we have to examine it.
Yeah, exactly.
Responsibility.
Exactly.
It's
But yeah.
self-direction.
Well, it depends, right? You want to ask yourself, why do you want this job in the first place, right? Is it for the betterment of humanity, or is it to buy a new car? Or both, right?
Yeah,
You know.
sometimes we just get a promotion to stop being bored.
Yeah.
The things we do every day.
Yeah.
New job.
Did you ask
Yeah.
for a promotion?
This is a big condition,
No,
right?
I'm not joking. I'm asking it. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I'm asking this because I'm really,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes we feel like
Mm.
they owe us a promotion, but we never go for it and never ask. It's just a thought, oh, I deserve it.
Or asking the wrong day.
Or, yeah, but, so it's more complicated.
It is.
than that,
But the thing is that if you're getting lost in manipulating conditions that are external, you're disempowering yourself,
Yeah.
right? So the first thing you need to do is to watch your afflictions, right? And the first one that's present is impatience. And the problem with impatience is that there are things that it sees that are accurate observations. You can keep those accurate observations and let go of the disturbance of your mind, because there's a little grain of wish to harm in there. Yeah? They should know better. They should see better. I will punish them in some way for not seeing my qualities, even if it's just with a cold face or with sort of passive aggressiveness or not doing my job right now quite as well as I could or as efficiently as I could, to show them somehow that they should see me better. Whether or not that's there is your own thing to check. But the first thing you need to do is watch your afflictions, right? One, because it will hurt you to stay afflicted. And also it will make you unable to be creative about new solutions, right? So the first thing we're always trying to work on when there's suffering arising, how do we come back to a stability? Yeah, we usually make our choices on the back of discomfort, right? This is uncomfortable, something must change. What if we went, this is uncomfortable, let's sit and come to mental clarity and then make a choice, right? So that's the first thing we need to do, is to really empower ourselves to come back to, actually, I am in charge of my degree of happiness or suffering. Okay, so something really simple, yeah. And when you make a choice, it's coming from your wisdom, not your afflictions. Yeah, but it's also interesting to look, what are the patterns here that I've seen in other workplaces, in other relationships, during school years? Is there something that keeps happening? Because that can be really interesting, kind of personal project to work on, right? Like I remember I had the same boss 4 times in a row in different bodies, right? Yeah, and what was so interesting is that if you were to meet all 4 of them, they were very different people, right? And so it was odd that I was kind of bringing the same thing out of all 4 people. And what I realized is 2 things were happening. One was a karmic ripening, and the other was a present behavior, right? A present behavior based on a cultural assumption, right? Because I was an American in an Australian environment, right? And so there was some cultural assumptions I had about communication that were different. And that was the kind of surface condition. But the substantial cause was the karma I created. And so what happens now is that I'm really conscious of that surface condition and keeping a positive state of mind. And generally, I don't have this same conflict with people who are in authority over me, but I can feel the potential for it, even with different conditions, right? Because it's a karma I obviously have very strongly. So I know how to kind of like keep it at bay, but that's not the only condition that can bring that out of bosses because of the karmic conditions I've created.
She's very specific.
This is the problem, right? It's more useful to look into your own specifics. Yeah, it's more useful to look into your own specifics, yeah. But just keep looking at the pattern and ask, am I doing something similar internally with my mind? And then are there surface conditions that might be bringing out this pattern? So you do this 2-fold approach with everything. But you have to start with clarity, right? Not reactivity. Yeah, just really gentle, okay? And know that, you're not alone, right? So the first thing that happens when you're suffering, if you can go immediately to, I am not alone in this. Right. But I mean, do you know, but the thing is that can actually open your mind into relaxation. When you feel like this is happening to me alone, it can feel like such a bigger deal. And then you realize, wow, everyone of my generation, pretty much 90%, is having this same kind of hitting a certain ceiling problem. And there's kind of a greater issue at play, and I'm one of many. It can relax you into that. And it can also help your solutions be broader solutions, not just for you, but for everyone in a similar space, which is life-giving. Yeah, it's much more life-giving to think, I've helped rework the structure of this workplace for everyone that comes after me, than I made my day better. Ho-hum.